הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is a pleasure to see you here and to welcome you here on this Shabbat, on this very special Shabbat that we are celebrating this day, this week. This is, of course, not only the Shabbat that immediately follows, and really immediately follows Yom HaShoah, which we celebrated, which we marked yesterday. Yom HaShoah is the day of the remembrance of the Holocaust that we marked yesterday, and a day of recognition and, in certain ways, celebration of the heroism that has been associated with the Holocaust. But this year, yet again, the confluence of Yom HaShoah, the day of remembrance of the Holocaust, followed immediately by Shabbat Acharei Mot, which literally starts with the notion of the death of the sons of Aaron and what happens immediately following the death of the sons of Aaron. An interesting confluence for us. And it is on this particular day, on this particular Shabbat, that I think we want to recall yet another element of connection between the Holocaust and the notion of after death, and that relates to the hero and the poet, Chana Senesh. And I want to say a word about this to you this evening. Chana Senesh was born in Hungary and made it to the land of Israel, to Palestine, before it was the independent state of Israel. And in 1943 joined the British military in order to go back to Europe and fight the Nazis. She and a group of her friends were dropped behind enemy lines with parachutes on the border of Yugoslavia and Hungary. And this weekend, in 1943, she was in training in the British Army. She would then be dropped on the Hungarian-Yugoslavian border. She crossed the border with only one colleague, the others pulled out, to Hungary to be caught, to be arrested, and to be tortured and eventually executed by the Nazis. On the 2nd of May, in other words, early next week of 1944, she penned a poem. And the poem read in Hebrew, Ashrei hagafrur shenisraf vehetzit lehavot, blessed is the match that burned, that ignited and lit flames. And then, Ashrei halehava sheba'ara besitrei levavot, blessed is the flame that burned in the depths of our hearts. And so this Shabbat, as we are about to light the Shabbat candles, this is our time to remember, to celebrate, to mark the holiness, the sacredness of those flames that burn in our hearts. the flames, the sacred flames of dignity, of freedom, of equality, of tolerance, of respect, of all that we stand for. And on this Shabbat, we are delighted to not only engage in this Shabbat service, but to also welcome into our chapel Daryl Torbert and Congresswoman Chantel Brown. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being with us on this Shabbat. It gives me great pleasure to invite up here Danny Gross to please join me and light our Shabbat candles. And I'm going to invite you to please turn to page 3.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Well, Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Shabbat Shalom to those of you who are joining us from home or wherever you may be. I now invite you to please turn to page 26, and if you're able to please rise for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
וימעט יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי.
בחייכון וביומייכון
ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן הקריב ויאמרו
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי. יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודש בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה
תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן
בעלמא ויאמרו
אמן.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך, לעולם ועד.
Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praised be Adonai, to whom praise is due, now and forever. O God, you are as near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you, we seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. On page 33, please join me. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Together, hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. Please be seated and join us with the Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני, אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. On page 37, please join me. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work. Whether you are tired or you are rested, let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. And on page 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there, except by joining hands, marching together. On page 43, please again read with me. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. I now invite you to turn with us to pages 46 and then 48 and 50 and to please rise for the Amidah.
Adonai, Shabbat ufiya git tehillatech. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chesdei Avot ve'imot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני,
מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. On page 53. Days pass and the years vanish and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence like lightning illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai. Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. On page 61, grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Together, bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. We pray silently.
Good evening, Shabbat Shalom. So good to see so many of you here. We are going to continue with our Torah service, which begins in our prayer books on page 244. There's none like you among the gods, Adonai. There are no deeds like yours. You are sovereign over all worlds. Your dominion is in all generations. Adonai reigns, Adonai has reigned, Adonai will reign forever and ever. Adonai will give strength to our people, Adonai will bless our people with peace. Will you please rise?
Ein kamocha
In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Udvar Adonai b'Yerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Le'o Yisrael, Be'kedushato, Shema Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh
Shemo, Gadol Adonai iti, u'neromema Shemo yachadav. Lecha Adonai b'gedulia, b'gevura, b'Tifereth, v'hanetzach v'ha'od. Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Lecha Adonai ha'mamlacha, v'hamidnaseh lechol rosh. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו
Let's leave that right here. You may be seated. This is actually the first moment in 2 years where I haven't felt the need to say that this is a moment where the effect precedes the cause. You sit down And then I say, please be seated. Here we are in Leviticus. And I have a guess without taking a vote that you share the common reputation of the book of Leviticus, especially the first 18 chapters, that it's boring, that it's numbingly detailed, and that it is completely irrelevant to our needs. Here's an example from our portion. Aaron shall then offer his bowl of sin offering to make expiation for himself and his household. He shall slaughter his bull of sin offering, and he shall take a pan full of glowing coals, scooped from the altar before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of finely ground aromatic incense, and bring this behind the curtain. He shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, so that the cloud from the incense screens the cover that is over the ark of the pact, lest he die. He shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger over the cover on the east side, and in front of the cover he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. He shall then slaughter the people's goat of sin offering, bring its blood behind the curtain, and do with its blood as he had done with the blood of the bull. He shall sprinkle it over the cover and in front of the cover. This, I think, we all would agree, exemplifies what we consider to be an irrelevant book, however detailed. And so you might say, if we must read this book, let's get through Leviticus as fast as we can. And please, don't ever make us study it. Well, I'm here to tell you that Leviticus pulsates with excitement. But one has to have the will to look for it and to find it. So an example from the very beginning of our Torah portion, Leviticus chapter 16. The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron who died when they drew too close to the presence of the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, tell your brother Aaron that he is not to come at will or whenever he wants to into the shrine behind the curtain in front of the cover that is upon the ark, lest he die. For I appear in the cloud over the cover. Here we have, it seems to me, a paradox. What is a paradox? A paradox is an apparent contradiction. The ark contains the terms of the covenant and the presence of the Lord, both of which make for life, but which can lead to death for the one who enters it presumptuously. Let me give you a couple of examples of a paradox. The very important and famous pre-Socratic Heraclitus, who was born about 100 years before Plato, said the following: you cannot step into the same river twice. Or Leo Strauss, the famous 20th century political philosopher, says that Socrates' only advantage over anybody else was his knowledge of ignorance. And Strauss goes on to say that the knowledge of ignorance is not itself ignorance. Or here's another example. To risk nothing is to risk everything. Paradox poses a contradiction. What's its function? Its function is to make us think, to provoke us out of our lethargy, to arouse our desire and our will to learn and to understand. Now, in our Torah portion, we find this paradox that is surrounding the word for enter, likrov. Because likrov can be used, and it is throughout Leviticus, to enter validly. But in this portion, it means to trespass, to encroach, to enter invalidly. That very word, likrov, captures the paradox. Or to put it differently, that which makes for life can lead to death. That is, that when we engage in the most important opportunities of our lives, we have to be careful, because these very life-enhancing activities contain peril. That is, there is risk, there is danger in matters that are most important to us. And therefore, we must treat these activities and these interests with care, with alertness, and with responsibility. In our lives, we have the opportunity to come ever closer to meaning, to goodness, to holiness. But this opportunity comes at a price, the burden of responsibility. And after all, the word responsibility comes from the word response. To respond to something independent of us that nevertheless calls to us. So some examples. Moses is called to lead the Israelites, but first he must take off his shoes because he's standing on holy ground. He's close to his vocation at this moment, but his vocation is a privilege fraught with danger. Or take the idea of the chosen people. We find it expressed in the chapter before the giving of the Ten Commandments in the book of Exodus, where God says, "You Israelites you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples." The idea of the chosen people. Is this a free pass? Are we to be exalted above all other peoples with no expected behavior from us? Not at all, says the prophet Amos. And I quote from chapter 3, "You alone have I singled out of all the families of the earth." Chosen. That is why I will call you to account for all your iniquities. The privilege of getting close to God, of getting close to life's deepest meaning, creates not glory, but responsibility. That is inextricably connected to this privilege is the danger of not doing the right thing. Climbing the mountain, yes, but by climbing the mountain, we risk falling off the mountain. Privilege and burden, opportunity and danger, the life of the Spirit and the death of the Spirit, they go together. The yes and the no, they're inevitable companions. So what are the aspects of our lives that give us life, that give us meaning, that give us satisfaction? Here are 4 of them. Our work, our play, our relationships, our words. Our work can give us pleasure, but we must do it with care and with purpose, responsibly. Play can bring us joy, but we must play the game correctly and honestly. Relationships can bring us satisfaction, but we must treat others with respect and with dignity, even when it's hard to do. Our words can create clarity and insight and facilitate communication with others. But language, as we know, can maim as well as heal. It can blaspheme as well as bless. Don't use God's name in vain. That is, we have the privilege of having God's name on our lips. Don't treat that word and the reality to which it points casually, cavalierly. It names our ultimate concern. This is the great paradox of life. We as human beings have wondrous tools, minds to think and to plan, hearts to empathize and to love, wills to act and to create, ears to hear and to understand, hands to reach out to others and to help, mouths to speak and to sanctify. But these gifts of life and the responsibilities to which they call us can also, if we're derelict and mindless and egocentric, they can lead to disrupted relationships, disappointment and loneliness, suffering and pain. We have the power to live well and the power to live badly. That's the paradox and the message of the beginning of, to me, one of the most exciting books in the Bible. We have the privilege to enter the Holy of Holies and to touch life's depths. But with it comes the danger of doing so thoughtlessly and recklessly and self-importantly. Aaron and his sons had the choice, and so do we. I'm going to read now from the first verses of the book of Leviticus, chapter 16, at the very beginning. The Midrash tells us that we all stood at Mount Sinai. So let's recite the blessings for the reading of Torah together. You can find them on page 250. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe acharei mot shnei v'nei Aharon b'karvatam lifnei Adonai v'yamutu. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe daber el Aharon achicha v'al yavo b'chol eit el hakodesh mibeit leparochet el panei hakaporet asher al ha'aron v'lo yamut. Ki ba'anan era'eh al hakaporet bezot yavo Aharon el hakodesh b'far ben bakar lachatat v'aya la'olah katonet bad kodesh yilbash u'michnasei bad yihiyeh al basaro uv'avnet bad yachgor uv'mivnetzet bad yitznof bigdei kodesh haim v'rachatz b'mayim et basaro ulvesham ume'al adat b'nei Yisrael yikach shnei se'irei izim l'chatat v'ayel echad la'olah v'hikriv Aharon et par hachatat asher lo v'chiper ba'ado uv'ad beito. And God spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they entered, or as we might translate it, encroached upon the ark in front of the Lord, the Yamutu, and they died. And the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to Aaron, your brother, that he not come at any old time of his own choosing into the sacred domain within the curtain and before the seat over the ark, which is over the ark, that he not die. For I appear in a cloud over that ark cover. This is how Aaron shall come into the holy space, with one bull for a sin offering and with a ram for a burnt offering. He shall be clothed with a linen tunic, a holy linen tunic, and he shall dress himself in linen breeches and with a belt by which he girds himself, and with a turban over his head. These are the sacred garments. And Aaron shall wash himself with water, and he shall dress in these garments. And from the congregation of the Israelites, let Aaron take 2 male goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Aaron shall also bring a certain bull for a sin offering, which he himself owns, and he shall make atonement for himself and for his household. Blessing after the reading of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Some of you have noticed, I hate to make a big deal out of it, my haircut. And one of the burdens of getting a haircut is to try to keep your kippah on your head. I'm having a little trouble with this. We are turning now, as we always do at this point, to thinking about those members of our families and circle of friends who are ailing of body, of mind, or of spirit. As my hand passes over your section of our congregation, you may feel free to mention the names of those about whom you are thinking so that we can add our prayers to your prayers for their return to health. We also think on this occasion about Bonnie Chiswick, Marty Deutsch, Nancy Friedman, Cliff Goldman, Karen Goldman, Amelia Hegarty, Maddie Jefferson, Byron Krantz, Richard Moore, and Bob Shippey. We wish all of them and all of whom you have mentioned a refuah shalema, a complete return to health. We turn to page 253 and chant together, sing together the Misha Berach prayer.
The renewal
And now to express our gratitude for the presence of Torah in our midst, we rise together.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל. אני אדוני תפילת משה. ללי ללי
We turn now to page 256. Yahallelu et Shem Adonai ki niskav shemo levado. Let us praise the name of Adonai, for God's name alone is exalted.
אותו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם וירם קרן עמו, תהילה תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל אמרו, הללויה, 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 הללויה.
For I have given you good instruction, do not abandon my Torah. It is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it, and all its supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return. Renew our days as of old.
יצחיים היא למחזיקים בה, ריתמו מחיה מבושה, דרכיה דרכי נועם, וכל נתיבותיך שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך נשובה, חדיש חדיש יומנו, חדיש יומנו ככתם.
We continue now with the Aleinu, found on page 282.
עלינו לשבח להדור הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Please join me on page 291. We read together the English, a poem by Chana Senesh. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. We read on the bottom of 291. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. At this time, we turn our hearts to those who are no longer with us. The people that we have laid to rest this week: Roger Horowitz, Nancy Jacobs, Barbara Morsi Myers, Robert Bob Roth, Ronald Zucker. And we think of those who have been laid to rest in the last 30 days: Robert Jones, Marjorie Kempner, S. Howard Reese, Mark Richmond, Edwin Z. Singer, Zella Terry, Bruce Adelstein, Nancy Hamill, Louis Clapp Foltz, Sheldon Kassoff. And we also recall those individuals whose yahrzeit fall at this time: Joseph Abrams, Hetty Ackers, Bethold Auerbach, Michael Baskind, Louis S. Bing Sr., Polly D. Blumenthal, Seymour Jeffrey Brennan Jr., Hordy Coven, Ann Cohen, Dorothy R. Davis, Peter J. Dubin, Milton Dunn, Betty Bucher Eichler, Arthur Einstein, Max S. Fried, Ruth Goldstein Friedman, Charles Ginsberg Sr., Mimi K. Gold, George E. Goldman, Emil H. Gottfried, Dr. Joseph W. Gray, Henry High Gray, Leslie A. Grodin, Mildred Kahn Gross, William V. Gross Sr., Fillmore J. Haber, Morris H. Hausman, Hattie Mendelson Horvitz, Charles Allen Hibschman, Florence Katz, Samuel L. Katz, Bert Keller, Samuel W. Kern, Doris Lenore Klausner, Ethel R. Levine, Norma Davidson Levine, Jack Linger, Jeannie Littman, Issy Loeb, Charlotte Malinas, Dr. William B. Marcus, Fred Martin, Sylvia Millett, Edward I. Mintz, Patricia A. Newman, Sylvia Newman, Eileen Bergson-Nickman, Molly Paley, Sybil Hart Pierer, Lena Wilk Prentke, Aaron Ryan, Ida Rigglehout, Betty Rosenthal, Isaiah Rosen, Jack P. Roth, Grace K. Rotman, Louis M. Scher, Fanny Schoenberger, Jacob T. Schulist, Agnes K. Schulman, Abraham B. Siegel, Samuel Schewitz, Pauline Schiffman, Elaine C. Schifrin, Dr. Louis L. Shore, Donald G. Silverstein, Ida Spiro, Alfred C. Stein, Zelda Stillman, Joseph Stone, Mildred Task, Samuel Tillies, Janet Hoffman Warner, Grace Weidenthal, Sidney S. Weiskopf, Florence F. Rissenstafter, Ruth R. Wolfstein, Hannah Zark, Gita Zark, and Leah Zark. At this time, if you would like to add any names to our Kaddish list, or if I have mispronounced any of the names, I invite you to share their names out loud at this time. At this time, I invite those who are able, who are in a period of Shiv'ah or have lost someone in the last 7 days, to please rise if they are able. I ask those who are in a period of Shloshim or have lost someone in the last 30 days to please rise. And at this time, if anyone is marking a yahrzeit, I invite you to please rise. And now, as a caring community, we rise together and we turn to page 294 for the recitation of the Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ועלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen. May their memories be for blessing, and together we say,
Amen.
you may be seated. With loss also comes life and joy. It has become our tradition, our custom at this time to take a moment and acknowledge happiness or joyous events, moments for our community to acknowledge together. Does anyone have anything to share with us this evening? Oh, come now. We just heard Rabbi Klein's words of choosing responsibility, living life. Yes.
My son is turning 50, and his grandma passed away when he was 100,
Wow.
and also his son is graduating from high school.
Wow. Mazal tov and mazal tov. 5-0. It's a lot of wisdom. Yes. An appreciation of Rabbi Klein's haircut. That's the best shechianu I think we've ever had.
I'll meet you after.
Well, I feel like that deserves a shechianu.
Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
שהחיינו וקיימנו
והגיענו לזמן הזה. Amen. Please join us for our closing song on page 321, Adon Olam.
אדון עולם אשר עולם בטרם כל יצא נברא לעת נשא בחצו כל אז המלך שמו נקרא ויחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית ולא העוז והמשרה והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו אפקיד רוחי בעת ישן ויהירה וימרוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Please join us for Kiddush.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הכופל ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר יציאת מצרים קיוונו בחרת ואתנו קידשת מכל העמים
Now our blessing over our bounty.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam,
Amansi Yadayhem Hiyadaret. Amen.
Filled with peace and the blessing, to find blessing in all of our responsibility in making our world a better place. Shabbat Shalom.